You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
Right up Meridian, baby.
All right, folks, welcome back. Right Up Meridian. I got Tony with me, Scott here with you. Real quick, we are part of the Back Home Network. As you know, Back Home Network is sponsored by Home Field Apparel. They came out with a Indiana shooting shirt, like shooting jacket, which is just, I said in the Crimson Cast pod, it's like, it's fire. It's like the best thing they've come out with. Just buy it, get it. I will be wearing it next season when hopefully things are going a little better for the Hoosiers. But we're here to talk about Pacers. No, now is Indiana basketball. It becomes a Pacers basketball discussion. Tony, man, you have a new office. You're looking at Gamebridge. You're in the hustle and bustle, man. You're there.
Pacers and racers, baby. That's what season it is now.
That's right, May.
But yeah, moved offices. So I'm looking right at Gamebridge Fieldhouse from where we currently record. So that's fun. Can hop over to some Pacers games easily right after work. Right across the street from Kilroy's and all that fun stuff. So we redact that. No free ads on here.
No, Kilroy's. Shout out to you. We want like breadsticks, free breadstick orders. Let's go.
But yeah, happy to be on here chatting some Pacers. It's been a couple weeks since you and I have been able to connect over the Pacers. So always a pleasure talking about.
Dude, it's our podcast, blood. Man. It's you and me. You're part of the team. So where we're at with the Pacers. So I was at that Bulls game. That was a tough loss. It was a back-to-back. You and I were texting about it. Like, it sucks that they're having a real hard time on back-to-backs. Like, they're 2 for 10, I think, 2 of 10 in the back-to-backs. But we're starting to run into, and thankfully they went ahead and beat the Nets, which is great because they have like 5 more games against the Nets the rest of this year. Tonight we're getting into like, these are starting to become all big games. Where the Pacers stand is they are at the 6th seed, although they're very tenuous. We'll talk about that. But you're getting to a point where you only have so many games against bad teams. That's why that Bulls game was so tough for me, is it's like the Bulls are not a great team. You only have so many of these games left. And they have a real opportunity to get out of the play-in and into the actual playoffs. And to me, I think it would be a bit of a loss if they're not able to capitalize on that opportunity based on the other teams around them. But how do you see it thus far the last couple of weeks with the Pacers?
Yeah, man, that Bulls game was just a killer. And it's kind of, the Pacers are so perplexing because it's like at one point, like, they beat the Thunder on the road, they beat the Mavericks on the road, and then it's like they come home and, have a kind of a stinker against the Bulls. So it's kind of been like how the season's gone. It feels like, I'm sure there's a statistic out there that I could probably easily look up, but, I feel like against the upper echelon of the NBA, the Pacers have been really dang good. And then against some of the lower tier teams, they've struggled, which I think is kind of a sign probably of a young team that, it's easy to get up for the big games, and it's hard to kind of have that same level of energy for, some of the lower tiered teams. And I think that's kind of like a lack of maturity thing that you get more with veteran clubs where like they're going to play, as hard as they can for the 82 games or whatever the case may be. So it's been an interesting kind of up and down ride where like when I looked at the schedule last month and I looked at the games that the Pacers had, and I kind of would have notched W or L. I was pretty much wrong. Yeah. They flipped the script on each of them, which is fine with me because, they beat some really good teams and played some good basketball, all while Haliburton has kind of struggled as well. So, overall, as you and I talked last time we were on here, like, if they are able to stay out of that play-in, I think that's a success. The last thing you want to do is end up in that play-in. You get a Trae Young 60-point game or something in this, in the 7-10 game, and next thing you know, you're fighting for your life, and you don't make the playoffs. Anything they can do to stay out of that play-in game, I think, is a success. And then they're not far off from the 4 and the 5 if they went on a little run here. But where I currently sit, it's just like if you get the 6th seed or better, I'm good with it.
I agree. I think the 6th line is what they got to get above. The thing that we didn't talk about since we've last been on together is the unfortunate Benedict Mathurin is out for the year with a shoulder injury. which is odd. My wife and my son, I had the flu for a week, so I was down. They went to a season ticket party. Mathurin was there playing around, shooting around, and like the next day, it's like he's out for the season, which just sucks. Like it's a shoulder thing, but again, you know, the kid's 21, 22. It's like he's got a long career ahead of him. As much as it sucks for this season, like, you know, trust in those doctors. I don't mean this as a knock to Mathurin. I do wonder if this helps the Pacers out a little bit and that it gets a little bit more time for, you know, Jarris Walker, who you and I have both been like, this guy is really, the little bit we've seen has been good. His minutes have obviously gone up. He's played almost every game, I think, since Mathurin's been out, with logging some big minutes. Like, you know, Chicago, he had 24 minutes a couple weeks before in the loss to Minnesota. He had 16. So I also look at, like, you know, Mathurin and Siakam. We'll talk about Siakam in a second, but Mathurin and Siakam both, focusing on Mathurin, the way that he plays is kind of atypical to how the rest of the team plays with Haliburton. Like Mathurin plays a little more one-on-one style. I think it's still taking him some time to kind of find his footing. And so in a way, not that he's bad, but I do wonder if this becomes a bit of addition by subtraction. I hate saying that because there's no knock on Mathurin, but just maybe you get more guys who play in kind of the flow of the offense. Maybe you get a little more time for Jarris Walker to continue to develop. It kind of pushes Carlisle's hand where he has to play him. I don't know. I think, you know, losing Mathurin is a loss. I just wonder for this team that's not competing for, you know, an Eastern Conference championship, I do wonder if maybe the pieces that work with Haliburton might be a little better with Mathurin not playing the rest this year.
Yeah, and definitely with, you know, a guy like Ben Shepherd, you know, stepping into the role that he's been asked to play now. You can tell that he's a guy that is, first of all, from the defensive aspect, I can't believe how good he is on the defensive end and is able to lock in and lock down. But then offensively, he's more of a piece that fits better with like a Haliburton type, just based on, you know, how he's more of a spot up shooter, doesn't need the ball in his hands to create a shot a lot. Whereas, as we've noted, Mathurin is certainly somebody that needs the ball in their hands right now, to kind of create a bucket for themselves, get themselves going as well. So I do think in that respect, it does help just from a development standpoint, because you're able to get the two rookies some more playing time in Shepherd and Jarris Walker. So like you said, you're probably not competing for like an Eastern Conference championship at this point. I think you kind of noted, like, you let the world know that when you traded Buddy Hield. So now you have an opportunity to develop some of your younger guys that you got in the first round of the draft, and you can kind of evaluate all of these different things as, you know, you try to make a push next season to be more in that contention line in the Eastern Conference, I think. So you've got some decisions to make. You've got a lot of good pieces that you're trying to figure out where do they fit into the mold. And this kind of just opens that up where, you know, you're not playing the delicate balance of trying to develop guys, but also pissing guys off. Like, your hand's kind of forced. And so I do think it helps in that regard. Yeah.
Shepherd has been awesome for a late first round pick. You know, he's, you know, the last couple of games he's averaging, you know, 15 to 20 minutes. He's sometimes, you know, one of the key guys in the second lineup. There have been some games he's finishing the game, like he's ending games. You know, the stats aren't amazing, but still 4.5 points, 41% shooting, 33% from the 3-point line. Not awesome, but also, like, I mean, like you said, defensively, he's just a maniac. Like, he is kind of taken from like TJ McConnell, like, all right, that's the guy I'm going to emulate. And it's like, not bad. For a late first round pick, it's been really good to see, considering I'm always like concerned about, like, I like Jarris Walker, but it's like, I will continue to be saying that, you know, that pick at that spot was so key, and I really hope they hit it correctly. But Shepherd looks like was a great end of the first round pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's also a guy that, you know, at the beginning of the year, his number was never called.
Right.
He may not have known if his number would ever be called. And then, like, as soon as he's inserted in the lineup, he's ready and he produces. Like, for a rookie to kind of go through that long stretch where, like, yeah, he's playing in the G League or whatever at certain times and get some reps, which I think the Pacers have done a nice job of getting guys those reps that aren't getting high minutes in the NBA. But to, like, have your number called and immediately produce and really force your coach's hand to, like, man, I got to play this guy because his production levels are so high. Like, I think that speaks to the maturity of a guy like him. I think it also showcases, like, when you take a guy at that pick, maybe it's better to take a guy that was in college basketball 3-4 years. Like,
Yeah.
he's like as old as Haliburton, but he's a rookie,
Yep.
So I think that does play a factor here where like he's been through some ups and downs of college basketball. He's more seasoned in terms of like how he's been able to adjust to things. And so, he really has the right approach to it where like when his number's called, he's ready to go. And, he's not sulking or like, why am I not playing as a first round pick? Like he goes in, produces, and now he's a key piece in their rotation.
So here's a question I want to ask you. I'll kind of give you an open runway to answer this however you want. Pascal Siakam. So we traded for him, as you know. And again, like I said, I'm not sure we gave up that much because we gave up Bruce Brown, who was basically a expiring contract. You had an extra year as a team option, but he's 1 or 2 year expiring contract, and a bunch of first round picks, which were kind of pseudo second round picks, like we talked about. I bring this up because Siakam has been good. He made a great block at the end of that Bulls game. He's had some better defensive plays. Offensively, like we talked about earlier, he's been a little bit, it feels like not quite in the offense, the way the Pacers run it, a little more ISO heavy. It kind of takes some time for him to get going. When you look at his stats, like the last 15 games compared to, last year, the 2022-2023 season in Toronto, some of the numbers are the same. Some of them are going down. Like he's averaging 19.7 points a game in the last 15 games of the Pacers. Last year, he averaged 24.2. He was making 4 3-pointers with the Raptors last year, about 2.7 this year. Like all the numbers are kind of depressed compared to where he was last year. I think some of that is him just trying to figure out how to fit in with this team. Maybe, a full off season will come off. But I bring it up because, on The Ringer, Bill Simmons had a podcast of like the worst NBA contracts. And they listed all the worst, basically it's based on like, the contract versus what they're giving you. And they went through, I think, like 15, 20 picks. All the picks were, what you expect, Jordan Poole, some of those guys. But Joe House picked Pascal Siakam's upcoming contract as one of the worst, which I thought was funny. But I do wonder, and again, you can kind of take this question however you want. Like, I do think we've all kind of been like, all right, just you need a full offseason to see how this is going to work out. But there's a flip side where it's like you're looking at giving Siakam a 4 to 5 year deal worth 40 to 50 million a year. You're looking at a $200 million deal for a guy who, once you sign that, if he's not able to produce back to the Toronto levels, if he's going to be giving you, 17, 18 points a game, it's like, is that really worth the 20, the 40, 45 million a year when you can, you're getting guys like Aaron Nesmith, who's giving you pretty much the same at like 10 million a year. Again, it's not that Siakam's good. It's like, is it worth 40 million a year? I don't know. I'm starting to get a little bit concerned that it's like, I'm not seeing enough flashes. And the Pacers are kind of pot committed. They have to re-sign him. I'm not sure you can not have that spot unless you just go and get somebody else to fill that spot. But I don't know. There's not really a question there, but it's just, as a Pacers fan, I am looking at that a little bit concerned because I don't want to have one of those albatross contracts, especially when you have a young star in Haliburton. The worst thing you can do is start locking yourself down into bad contracts.
Yeah, it's a little bit twofold or maybe threefold here. I think it was horrible timing of when he came in with the Haliburton injury.
So true. Yeah.
And all of that stuff. Like, Haliburton still doesn't look like himself.
Nope.
Since that injury. And so it's like, he really hasn't been able to play on the Pacers with a full deck. And then, they lost, or they didn't lose Buddy Hield. They gave Buddy Hield away or whatever the case may be. So like a lot of moving parts, including him here and like the NBA, I think a lot of people don't realize, like, you don't practice during the season. Like,
right.
It's very rare. Like, you have your shoot arounds and whatnot, but like, you're not really getting time to like implement systems and plays. And so like, I don't think Carlisle has really been able to like game plan around having a Pascal Siakam type player alongside Haliburton. Now I will say, some of his like points and things like that are down, but his efficiency is way up as a Pacer. He's shooting 54% from the field last season. His last full season with the Raptors, he was 48%. He's 37% from three, which would be a career high for him. As a Pacer, he's 37%. As a Raptor earlier in the season, 39 games, he was shooting 31.7%. And his rebounding is up a tick from what he was doing with the Raptors this season. So, I do think that the game is probably easier for him than it was when he was playing with the Raptors, just having another Haliburton type where he can take some of the focus away from defenses. So he may not have the ball in his hands as much as he did. He's also playing less minutes. His Pacers minutes are as low as he's had since his third season in the league, at 32 a game. So he's playing less minutes, which is better on his body, especially as a guy that's only getting older.
Right.
He's only going to get older in this contract. So I think the Pacers are slow playing this a bit too. I think they obviously had a pretty good idea that they were going to re-sign him. He had a pretty good idea of that. Sounds like Haliburton vetted him, a lot as well, and had a lot of conversations of like, hey, do you really want to be here? Like, you got to want it here in Indiana and stuff like that. And so I think that we will see a different Pascal Siakam next season, just in terms of the fit and obviously a healthy Haliburton and some other pieces, like what the Pacers have kind of flipped their roster a bit, without Bruce Brown and Buddy Hield, and you added McDermott and Siakam and guys like that to the fold. I just think that it's really hard to get a full gauge of what this could look like. Like you said, until you have an off season where you can figure some things out on both ends of the floor to fit a guy with that kind of talent. And so I'm still in kind of a wait and see with him. Like you said, I think he's had some great flashes as a Pacer. He's still productive. He's efficient. He's as efficient as he's ever been as an NBA player, at least since that season he played with Kawhi. And so that's encouraging. Now it would be, do you get his usage up a little bit higher? Does a healthy Haliburton change things a little bit as well? I think Haliburton's shooting like 22% in his last 10 games or 15 games as a Pacer from deep. So teams can start keying on Siakam a little bit more too with the way that Haliburton's played. So I'm still kind of in a wait and see. It was a long-winded answer of that, but that's kind of where I'm at with it.
No, I think you make valid points, and in the end, it's like the Pacers are going to do it. Like it would be a very weird move, and I think throw up a lot of question marks if they make that move. It sounds like Siakam wanted to re-sign. Like they do all this and then they don't re-sign him. Even if that's the right thing to do, you kind of get in these spots in the NBA where it's just like you kind of have, if you don't do that, then it's like guys are gonna be like, man, what the hell's going on there? Like, I don't know if I want to do a sign and trade there. I don't know if I want to go there. It's more like something might be going on that wouldn't look good. So I like, they're going to re-sign him, and they should.
Right, and represented by a huge agency, one of the biggest agencies in the NBA. So like, if you do that agency wrong, you're writing off a lot of current and future players that you could possibly acquire. Yeah,
and again, it's like I've just been. All I'll say is it's in my thought process, like just being a little concerned that if you sign a max guy, he's got to be a max guy, or he's got to be really close to a max guy, and that's where some teams get in trouble, where you sign another max guy and it's like, ooh, this guy's not worth the $45 million a year. That's where you get in trouble. And that's my only concern. But I think they're going to do it. And I think there's enough, like you said, his efficiency has been good. I think defensively, he's added a real piece to this team. And he wants to be here. And it's also like, this is where being a small market, it's not like you can just be like, all right, we're going to trade Siakam and get somebody else. Like that was the max slot guy you had available. And maybe it's not perfect, but it's not like he's going to be pushing for a trade in a year or two, at least that I don't think so. So you have that. I also just want to say, a bit of this is in the Bulls game that I saw, but just a shout out to Myles Turner, who I feel like is continually growing his game, and of anybody has benefited the most from Tyrese Haliburton. His true shooting percentage for the year is slightly below what it was last year. He's down to 62%. Last year he was at 65, but this is still the second highest shooting percentage he's had in his career. You look at his true shooting percentage for the season, the last 3 weeks, it is on a massive uptick. It's just in that Bulls game, it's like, dude, he was unstoppable. I kind of wondered sometimes it's like he almost needs to call for the ball more. Like there's a couple of times that, Nembhard had a couple of crazy threes where it's like, dude, get the ball to Myles.
Like 40 feet.
Yeah. And also his shot density is wild. Like it is like at the rim, top of the key 3, and like a little bit in the corner, the right side corner 3 are the only red spots on his shot density chart. It's like he's got 3 spots and that's where he's at, but he's great at getting there. He's great at hitting those deep threes. So just a shout out, like again, Myles Turner has been fantastic. And again, just this is an NBA thing. It's like you have to look at it compared to the contract, or we do it a lot on this pod because that's the way I think you need to look at the NBA. For what you're paying Myles Turner, you are getting superb performances out of him. So just shout out to Myles Turner.
He's been fantastic. And especially as a guy, like you talk about like a true pro. I mean, the dude's name has been in trade rumors for as long as he's been in the league almost, and just goes out there, does his job. For the most part, is kept his mouth shut to the media and hasn't complained about that aspect. And I think that's also a tribute to how the Pacers handle things like that. Like I think that's also a shout out to the front office of like they keep their players engaged when they're in those conversations and let them know like none of that should be a surprise to the players. And I think that's a good thing from the front office standpoint. But man, that guy just goes out there, he produces, shoots at a high level. He's like you said, he's a rim protector. He gets shots at the rim, and I hate it on Twitter. Like he's gonna have bad games here and there. Like this dude will put up 30 points and like not a peep from people about how good he played. But the second he has a bad game, man, those trolls come out and are just like, get rid of Myles Turner. They're tweeting at the Pacers account, get rid of Turner. Like the dude has been fantastic for this franchise for now 8 years.
Yeah, no, he's been here a while. And I think we've talked about it on another pod, but you're dead right about, he was in trade rumors for like 4 straight years. He had the one article we talked about, I should have gone to LA or like, and it's like outside of that. And by the way, I can live with that after 4 years of being on the trade block. I hear it. I always go back to, his rookie year was, I think, the year after Paul George broke his leg. If I'm remember this right, I think he played 1 year with Paul George. They had a pretty good season, and then Paul George, wants to be traded. George gets traded, and at that point, like Myles Turner was the only kind of named play. That was a team that has had a bunch of kind of scrubs. I think still like Lance Stevenson was hanging on that team. Like, and it's like if you're Myles Turner, it's like, all right, this is my team. Like I'm the top 10 pick. Like he has Turner's block in the stadium, and it's like. Immediately they get Oladipo, and within like 3 weeks, like, oh no, it's Oladipo's team. I think that situation could have really been tough for a lot of players to be like, no man, screw this. Like it's not Vic, it's me. And like, but he totally was cool being, Robin to Victor Oladipo's Batman. And then, it happens again where they get Sabonis, and it's like Sabonis is right next to him. And then, then it happens again. They get Haliburton, and, Haliburton at any point along that way, a lot of guys could have been like, hey man, no, this is my turn. Like it's my team. Like I want to be the alpha. And he never did that. And it's been huge. And I will just say, seeing, watching in person, I feel like of all the players who have been here, Aaron Nesmith is high on this list, but I think the players in watching that have understood how to play with Haliburton the best, I put Myles Turner at the top of the list. Like he's able to like know when to pick and roll, know when to pick and pop. Like he's able to move. And of all the guys, when you see them play with Haliburton, it's like Myles Turner seems to understand how the flow of the game works with Haliburton better than anybody else on the team.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
And finds the passing windows, for Haliburton to hit him and stuff like that. Like knows where Haliburton wants him to be and things like that. And, quite frankly, has benefited greatly from Haliburton being here. I mean, you look at obviously the Pacers acquired Haliburton. I believe Turner was out for the season as soon as they got Haliburton, or it was soon after.
Yeah.
And so he didn't really get to play with Haliburton's first half season. But that year before they got Haliburton, Myles Turner played 42 games. He averaged 12.9 points per game. His first season with Haliburton, he averaged 18. And had a career high year last season, 18 points per game. This year he's averaging 17.3 points per game, shooting 52% from the field. Like his game has taken a massive jump playing alongside Haliburton. And like you said, it's because he's figured out like hey, this guy's going to make me better. He's going to get me the ball in spots that, I need to get the ball in. And so it's been a breath of fresh air to kind of put the contract situation behind him, I'm sure. Just play basketball, and playing alongside one of the best point guards in the league has certainly elevated his game. And it's been fun to see.
So what we have at stake the next couple of weeks is, as we talked about, the Pacers and kind of where their playoff seeding is going. So let me just kind of lay it out here for you. And I'm going to use some probabilities from Dunks and Threes, the playoff probability chart, which is awesome. Boston, 100%. 100% probability of getting the 1 seed in the East. So that's out. Milwaukee and Cleveland are both kind of basically at, 90% for the 2 or the 3. So they're both out of that. The Knicks have separated themselves. They're pretty much, a 60% probability of getting the 4 or the 5. Orlando is pretty tight in the 4, 5, 6 window, somewhere in that range. So that leaves you with Indy, Philadelphia, and Miami as kind of the 3 teams that have real probabilities for the 6, 7, and 8 seed. But I think the 7 and 8 would be the play-in game. The 6 is obviously you're automatically in the playoffs playing the 3 seed. The Pacers have the highest probability of all those teams mentioned to make the 6 seed right now, which has changed. It used to be they didn't. They're right now at 29.6% to make the 6 seed. The Sixers are 19%. Miami's at 21% to make that. Indy's highest probability to make the 7 seed, they're at 30%, so just right on that borderline. But they also have a higher probability of making the 7 seed than Philadelphia and Miami. Philadelphia is kind of their best projection is to make the 8 seed, as is Miami is to make the 8 seed. So that's what's at stake here. I think, as we've talked about numerous times in this pod, and we'll talk about for the rest of the next couple of weeks of this pod, to me, I think you're at a point making that 6 seed is really, you should be the goal right now. It's attainable. This is also where I hate, changing the goalpost, but it's like, all right, we're here. It's March 18th. This is available. Let me just quickly run through some of the schedules, then I'll open it up to some thoughts by you. So the Pacers are playing, we're recording this on Monday. The Pacers are playing the Cavs tonight. Then they go on a 5-game road trip. They're at Detroit, at Golden State, at the Lakers, at the Clippers, at the Bulls. That's a tough road trip. And then the rest of the time, you have 3 more road games. I don't think any more back-to-backs, and you have a bunch more home games. So if you can kind of get through this road trip, still being somewhere in touching distance of that 6 seed, I think you're in a good spot. You look at the other teams that you're fighting for. You have the Heat. They have 2 road games coming up, the Sixers, the Cavs. Then they're home for a stretch. And then they have against the Pelicans, the Cavs, the Warriors, the Blazers. They're at Washington, home for New York, home for the Sixers, at Houston. They have an easier runway. Like the Heat, just as things always seem to work out for the Heat. Their second-round picks hit. Their free agent picks hit. Their schedule is always easier. Like everything's going to work out for the Heat. So the Heat are probably going to go on a bit of a run. As predicted on this podcast, the Sixers are falling off a cliff. I think they're going to continue to lose without Embiid, but their schedule is rough. They play the Heat tonight. They're home for the Heat. Then they have 4 road games: Suns, Lakers, Clippers, Kings. They're home for the Clips. Another road trip: Cavs, Raptors. Home for the Thunder. And then another road trip: Heat, Grizzlies, Spurs. So they have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of their next 11 games after tonight are on the road for the 76ers. I think that's going to put them out of competition. So I think, as I look at it, I think the Magic, who are 2 games ahead of us in the loss column, I'm not sure we can catch the Magic. It would be awesome if we did. I'm not sure we can. I think the Sixers are going to fall off. I think it's between us and the Heat, and I'm a little concerned because I think the Heat have the easier path based on schedule, but laid a lot of stuff out there for you. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm with you. It's a little concerning with the Heat, sniffing at you. And this is always when the Heat start playing their best ball this season. Like Eric Spoelstra, he's a true pro, one of the best coaches of all time in the NBA. And he's going to get his team playing good ball at the right time. And they're a team. The only solace in that is that I don't think the Heat ever care where they're seated.
Yep.
They're just going to go to the playoffs and then just start winning. And Jimmy Butler's going to start putting up 50. And so that's the only solace in that. But yeah, when you look at the two paths, it does seem as though the Heat have the better path. When I look at the Pacers at the 6th seed, and I know I've said this a few different times, but I think the 6th seed is like the perfect spot because I think you match up with Cleveland pretty well. Assuming that's who still stays at the 3rd spot. I think you could win that first round series perhaps. And then you do avoid the Celtics in the 2nd round.
Yep.
If you are that 3-6 series. So like that piece of it. So then like you beat the Bucks 4 times this year, which is who you'd probably play in the next round. Like I do think that's your best path forward. I'm not saying that the Pacers make the Eastern Conference Finals if they're the 6th seed, but like that would be your best path to do it as that 6th seed, in my opinion. But then if you're the 7 seed, again, like you just start playing with fire because say you lose to, or say you play the Hawks and they have a really good dynamic guard who can go off for 60 at any point. You got Trae Young go off. Now you're playing possibly the 76ers with Embiid back for a shot to get into the playoffs if something crazy happened. Like that's concerning. Like if somehow, some way, the Pacers got to figure out a way to stay out of that 7 spot and hold off the Heat, or then it just gets real nerve wracking. And I'd hate for that to be the case where this group doesn't get an opportunity to actually play in the playoffs.
Agreed. Like I said, I think I want to see the Pacers in a series. I think that's going to be good muscle memory for them to get into a series. And it's like, all right, what's it like, to be down 2-0 coming home, and like, what's that feel like? And then maybe you win 1 or 2. It's like, what's it feel like for that game 5 when you're on the road? And like, how do you take care of that? I think those are all good experiences that just losing in the play-in isn't going to get you. Where I do feel a little bit better is it does feel like the Pacers, based on what I think the Sixers are going to do, I don't see the Pacers falling to the 8 line. I think they're kind of in the spot where they're going to be the 6 or the 7, based on them or the Heat are kind of going to be in that spot. And if they're the 7, I don't like it. But the positive way to look at it is now you have 2 games to win 1, and they're both going to be at home. I think in that case, I think the 7 plays the 8 first, so they would play the 76ers at home in the play-in, which, it's like maybe Embiid's back, maybe he's not healthy. I'm more worried about Tyrese Maxey because Maxey just torched us the couple times he played them. So I'm a little concerned about that. But then it's like if you lose that, you're playing the winner of the Bulls-Hawks. You're also at home, but it's like, again, the Bulls just beat us. DeRozan torches us. Trae Young torches us. Like there's a problem there. The guys are torching the Pacers on a pretty absurd level. All of that said, I'm with you. I think the 6th seed is where I want them for those reps, and I wouldn't pick them to win a series, but I'm with you that it's like I think against the Cavs have not had great playoff success. They're still young. That could get really tight if you get it to a game 6 or 7. And then if you somehow win that series, I have some Bucks fans in my life. The Bucks don't want to see the Pacers. Like I know that 100%. I'm not sure we'd win that series, but I don't think that would be a series the Bucks would be comfortable with. And there is a path there. So all those, I agree with you. I just think they have to do that. And I think it's going to start with this road trip. I think as you look at, the games they have, the home games they have remaining, they're playing the Cavs, the Lakers, the Nets, Thunder, Heat, and the Hawks. I think you got to win like all but one of those in my mind. The Lakers and the Nets and the Hawks are just not good teams. So those are all teams you should be able to beat. The Heat are a team that you're going to be fighting with. You cannot lose that game to the Heat. It's on your home court. That's great. The Thunder are a really good team. You've already beaten them once. And the Cavs are a good team, but it's like this is where you could try and put that stamp on, like, all right, let's see if we can have a pre-playoff game tonight. We're recording this on Monday, and go get it.
Plus the Cavs, I believe Donovan Mitchell's not playing tonight.
Yep.
And they've got a couple nagging injuries as well. So tonight, the Pacers definitely should win. They don't have their top scorer. Like I think if you lose tonight, it's not good. Yeah, obviously it's not a good thing to lose games, but like I think the Pacers should be favored tonight given who's available. So if they lose, it would somewhat be a upset caliber.
Well, and also you got to look at the Heat and the Sixers are playing tonight as well. So it's like, if you win, you're going to gain a game up on one of those teams, and you're not going to lose a game on the other one. If you lose, you're going to drop out of that spot, and someone's going to jump you. So it's like, you can basically put a little more room between you and somebody else if you win tonight. And then, yeah, that road trip, we'll probably pod after that road trip, but it's like, the Pistons are not a good team. You got to win that game. Like, the Warriors are coming on fine. The Lakers just not a good team. Like, they have LeBron, they have Davis. They're not a great team. They don't have the guard play. You can't let, D'Angelo Russell torch you. The Clippers have come back to earth. So I think, Kawhi's not playing. So that's, again, and then you're at the Bulls. Bulls are not a good team. You can't lose to them. You come back, you play the Lakers, you play the Nets twice. Like, it's some of the names, this is funny. It reminds me a little of the Big Ten tournament. People are like, oh man, Indiana got a good draw. It's like, well, Penn State and Nebraska, they're actually good teams. Just because it doesn't say what you think it normally does in the jersey. And you're getting some of that now where people are like, oh, the Lakers or Warriors, like those are both play-in teams. Like, they're not good teams. The Thunder are a good team. Like, things are starting to change in the league, and some of those power brokers that you're used to are just not there. So I think you look at this, and actually I don't think the schedule is that bad, but this is where, this is the frustrating part of watching a young team, is they're going to be inconsistent. They're not going to go take care of business in every game they should. That's why they're a young team. But it's like, if you could just string together some, 600 win ball over the next couple of weeks, you could easily lock up that 6 seed. And to your point, you could even play yourself into the 5 seed, but I'm with you. I think the path I like better in the 6 seed. Not that we need to start picking spots here, but I think the 6 seed is a spot to go.
We're gonna start tanking for that 6.
Yeah. We're not. Yeah, we don't want to get too good.
Yeah, it's I'm in pretty much full agreement with what you're saying in terms of the schedule and how it shakes out. This road trip is going to be monumental for kind of the path forward for this season, and if the Pacers are to play in the play-in or not, it's. What's your thoughts? So here's how I know I'm getting older. I used to live for West Coast road trips. Like, I used to love staying up and watching those games. And now it's like 10:30. Like, come on. Like, man, I'm going to be up till like 1. Like, do I rewatch it later in the day? Like, do you stay up for those late ones? Like, how do you approach those late West Coast tips?
That's a great question. We both have kids. You have younger kids than I, but we both have younger-ish kids. Yeah, I watch those the next day. It's, dude, the 9 o'clock tips for IU games the last couple of weeks have been like, those have been tough. Like, it's staying awake on the couch has become an issue after I turned 40. Get ready, folks, for younger and you're listening to this. Like, it'll come for you. You become your parents so dang quick. Yeah, there's 0% chance I'm staying up till 1 to watch a game. So yeah, I'm just like, I will watch that the next day. So that's where I'm at. What about you?
Yeah, pre-kids, like I said, I lived for those. Like, those were my favorite, like, Pacers games. Like, I loved, like, staying up late and watching them. And now it's definitely a next day thing. Like, I might pop it on. Like, that's, like, if I'm not asleep by 10:30, which these days is pretty rare, I might pop it on in bed, and then I'll fall asleep watching it. And then there's, like, the rare occasion where, like, it's a really good game, and I'll, like, my adrenaline will be pumping, and I'll just stay up and watch the whole thing. But that's pretty rare these days.
I gotta say, this also goes into, rewatching games. I hope and pray every day that Bally's will not be in my life come next year. That app is such hot garbage. I hope it's on Amazon, and like, it can't be any worse than it is now. But it's like, I've had multiple times this season, not the West Coast games, not the 1 a.m. games, but it's like, there's a 7 o'clock game, and it's like, all right, I'm putting the kids to bed or whatever. And it's like, I will come and catch the end of the game. And then the game ends at like 9:30. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to like pick up and like you can on every other effing platform. Like, I'm going to pick up and just catch the last 30 minutes of the game. Bally's is like, oh, no. If you have the app, it's like they start a replay of the game right after the game is over. But that's all you can watch. Like, you have to then, they play the replay for the next 3 hours, and then then after that, at some point, 2 hours later after that, do they then put the live game, the game back in a DVR format where you can kind of spot back and through?
And that's if they're having a good day.
Yeah, if they're even able to make it. It's absurd how bad it is. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I tried to explain to people. You have the app so you understand. It's just like, it's absurd how stupid it is.
It's horrible. I mean, it's the worst. It's the worst of any streaming app, but I pay the most for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what boggles my mind. Like, I'm paying $20 a month for that thing. It should be a premium viewing experience, and it is all but that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Tony, any final thoughts? Or are you good?
I'm good. I think this West Coast road trip is going to be telling us a lot about this Pacers team moving forward. I hope that Haliburton continues to heal. He hasn't said anything about like his injury, but he just hasn't looked the same.
Yeah.
So hopefully that continues to subside. The hamstring's a weird one, especially for a guy that shoots a lot of step backs. Caitlin Cooper had a great piece on this. Like, he does step backs going to his right, planting off his left a lot, which is the hamstring he hurt, and like that just engages the hamstring a ton. And so if that's weaker, it's why a lot of his shots may not be falling. Like, it was a really interesting theory. And it may not even be a theory, maybe straight facts, but if you have a chance, check that out from Caitlin Cooper, because it was really good stuff to kind of explain away some of his shooting troubles. But yeah,
he's not been the
excited.
same since the injury. I mean, it's definitely, you're going to see a different Haliburton next year. And it's one of the things we'll talk about next time. Like, I'm concerned that he's going to lose an all-NBA spot over this. Like, I'm not sure his numbers have been good enough, and he hasn't kind of had that zeitgeist feel where I could see him being left off a third all-NBA third team.
Yeah, which sucks, because he probably would have just, like, if they didn't have that 65-game rule, he probably would have just not played until he got healthy enough to play. But then he played injured because he wants to get that All-NBA, but then because he played injured, his numbers aren't good enough to make the All-NBA. Like, it's just a weird all roundabout.
Well, and the other thing that's on that's going on here is, like, he has to make the he has to get them to the 6th seed to make the All-NBA. So,
yep.
All right, well, hey, I got a guy here at the door. Got a guy here to do some work at the house, so I'm going to have to run. But Tony, as always, a blast. Thank you all for listening. Please check in. We'll get you to the playoffs, promise. So thank you all for listening for Right Up Meridian. This is Scott, signing off.